Hi, and welcome back to the second hour of this Friday edition of Focal Point on AFR Talk. You are listening to High Definition Radio. More content per cubic inch of air than any other place on your radio dial. That is our goal. Glad you are with us. If you'd like to join the program, Free for All Friday, Casual Friday, 888-589-8840 is the number to call, 888-589-8840. I believe in right after the program today, by the way, to travel to Pennsylvania, where I will be speaking at a Tea Party event tomorrow in Greensburg, Pennsylvania. That's in southwestern Pennsylvania, about an hour outside of Pittsburgh there in the southwest corner of the state of Pennsylvania. If you live anywhere near there, would love to see you. It's going to be at the main park in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, between 11 and 1 tomorrow. So hope I'll have a chance to see you there. 888-589-8840 is the number to call. Took a call from a caller at the end of the last hour, talking about the fact that, we've got a choice in this presidential election. I want to be careful how I put this, but, I believe we have an obligation to speak the truth. And what we are faced with this election in November 6th, if you are somebody of sincere evangelical Christian faith, we have a choice between a socialist and an idolater. I mean, that's the choice that we have on November 6th. It's not a perfect choice. It's, we could wish that we had a better choice among the two options, but that's all we've got. All we have are two choices. Now, I understand people want to vote third party. I appreciate that. I never try to talk anybody out of that. I can understand why people in good conscience feel they cannot vote for either one of these candidates. I appreciate that. I respect that. Wouldn't want to pressure anybody into not doing that, because you got to follow what your conscience tells you to do. From my standpoint, a conscience tells me, my conscience, and again, everybody's conscience is going to be different, so I'm not saying my conscience ought to be the standard for anybody else. Do not misunderstand me. But in my view, a vote for a third-party candidate is a vote for Barack Obama. I mean, that is just the reality of it. I'm not going to say it's a wasted vote, because if you voted your conscience, then it's not a wasted vote for you. In my judgment, from a political standpoint, it is I don't know, it's not wise. Let me put it that way. It's an unwise vote. But we don't have a perfect alternative. But here's the reality that we got to accept. In golf, we have an expression, play it as it lies. Wherever your ball lies, your ball's up against the tree stump. And if you're playing by the rules, you got to hit it from the tree stump. Lands in a tree, you got to play it from the tree or declare an unplayable lie. You hit it out of bounds. You don't hit it in the water. You got to play it as it lies. You don't get a chance. You're not supposed to move the ball around and find a better lie. Now, we all do that. But if you're playing by the rules, tournament golf, you got to play it as it lies. And that's what we got to do in American politics. We have to play it as it lies. We don't have any other, realistically, we don't have a third choice. And don't forget that the Republican Party chose Mitt Romney. I mean, he wasn't foisted on us. Nobody put a gun to our head and said, this guy has to be the standard bearer of the Republican Party. Nobody did that. The Republican voters chose an idolater to be their standard bearer. And this may say much more about the Republican Party than it says about Governor Romney, because Governor Romney is who he is. He's never made any bones about the fact that he's a Mormon. He's a devout Mormon. He has been a Mormon all of his life. He has no apologies for being a Mormon. And we know what the Mormon Church teaches. This is not a secret to people. People know what basics of Mormon theology. So this isn't any kind of a secret. It's not like he was kind of holding out on us with this. It's never been any kind of secret whatsoever. And yet this is the candidate that the Republican Party chose to be its standard bearer. So that's the democratic process at work. And so those are the two choices that we have. And so you are faced, and I don't want to say either one of these men are evil. Please don't misunderstand me. When I use the expression lesser of two evils, that's just a figure of speech. I'm not saying that either one of these two guys are evil. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying what we're faced with here is a choice between two imperfect options. Neither one of these choices is as ideal as we would like them to be. And so the bottom line is you got a choice between a socialist and an idolater. I mean, a socialist and a polytheist. Those are the choices that Christians have. Now, I'm not talking about anybody else. I'm just talking about the choice that Christians have. I'm not saying anybody else ought to say, hey, that ought to size it up the same way. I want to be very clear here. This is just how sincere, devout Christians will size this thing up. If they're honest and they're true to their faith and they're true to the Scripture, then this is how a Christian will size up this presidential race. I'm not saying anybody else ought to size it up like this. I'm just saying this is how a devout Christian, a sincere follower of Jesus Christ and the Scriptures, this is how a Christian will size up this race, that the choice is between a socialist and a polytheist. I mean, that's just the fact. And we shouldn't shy away from recognizing that, acknowledging that reality. I mean, it's not a secret. Mormons believe in a plurality of gods. That's not a Christian concept. Christians believe there is one God who exists eternally in three persons. The Mormon church teaches that there are virtually an infinite number of gods, that you and I can become as much God as Jesus was. He was a man who became a God. We can follow in his footsteps. We are men who can become God. So if we all follow those footsteps, we follow the prescriptions, then each one of us will be a God in his own right, just as much as God the Father is Elohim, and just as much as Jesus Christ is God, so we can become God. So Mormonism is a polytheistic religion. Now, we shouldn't get all squirrely about that. We shouldn't get nervous about that. We shouldn't be afraid to talk about that and talk about that openly. I mean, that's just a fact. That's just the nature of it. And to pretend otherwise, or to kind of turn a blind eye to all that, to me, you're not living in reality then. And what we want to do is we want to live in reality. We want to live in truth, and we want to make decisions that are based in the open light of the day and the truth. So this is the reality. We got a choice between a socialist and a polytheist, between a socialist and what the Bible would call an idolater. And I'm not saying anybody else would call Mitt Romney an idolater. I'm just saying that that's what the Bible would call him. That's what Christianity would identify him as an idolater. He worships a different God than the one who is revealed in the pages of the Bible. And that's fine. We ought to be able to acknowledge that and not get all uptight about that, and not get all squirrely, and not get all outraged and all emotionally bent out of shape. Let's not do that. Let's discuss this like adults. Let's have a rational discussion in the light of the truth. So what this means, we're faced with two imperfect choices. Neither one of these is a perfect choice. Now realize Republicans had sincere Christians to vote for. Rick Perry, Newt Gingrich, Rick Santorum, Michelle Bachmann, every last one of them sincerely committed to a Christian faith. And yet the Republican Party rejected them. Republican Party voters, not the elites. We can't pass this off on the elites. We can't say the elites did this to us. This was a choice that the grassroots made. So this is their choice, and these are the options we've got. So if you use the analogy, the figure of speech, the lesser of two evils, and again, I want to be very clear, I'm not saying that Mitt Romney's evil. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that. Just a figure of speech. You got two imperfect choices. If the choice is between the lesser of two evils, if that's the choice that Christians are faced with, then I believe that Christians will choose less evil. And that's a good thing to do. It is the right thing to do, particularly when you look at what is at stake in our country in the future. I think Christians, even if they size this election up as a choice between the lesser of two evils, Christians ought to choose less evil. Focal Point, AFR Talk. We'll be back after these messages. Stay with us.